Good evening. Seeing as it's 6:30, I'd like to call this Thursday, September 11th, 2025 meeting of the Finance Committee to order. Tonight we'll be following the published and posted agenda. Will be available for viewing on Chelmsford Telemedia and recorded for future viewing. First item on our agenda this evening is the approval of minutes from May 29th, 2025. Has everyone had an opportunity to review them?
Yes.
Do you have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the minutes of May 29th, 2025.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, 6 in favor, 1 absent. Moving right along, we have a discussion of the fiscal year 2025 budgetary report and certified free cash. And with us this evening is Darlene Lycée, our town accountant.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, we had our free cash certified a couple weeks ago and closed out fiscal 25 positively. Good news. We'll probably just first start off with the revenues. Do you have the PowerPoint my PowerPoint presentation up, or do you want me to?
I do have it up.
Okay, perfect. So we start with the 25 revenues. All of our local receipt revenues, almost every category came in over budget, which was good, even if it wasn't by a large amount. So we did very well on our local revenues. Our biggest local revenue line item is our motor vehicle excise. That actually came in over $590,000 more than expected of our $5.9 million budget. Collections from the current fiscal year were about $340,000 higher from the prior year, about 5.5%. Really, I think the cause of the increase there and how we did well is that the price of the cars have really gone up. We're seeing it's really more of just the price of vehicles kind of driving up those revenues. Permitting fees, we did exceed our $1.6 million budget by $480,000, but was actually a decrease from the prior year, because prior year we actually had a $1.1 million or $1 million permitting fee from 255 Princeton Street, where this year we didn't have any large permitting fees like that. So we did have a little bit of a decrease, but we still were over our budgeted amount, so that's good. And meals tax, that also came in over budget. They're about just a little under $40,000, but there was actually a 5% decrease from the collections of prior year. And I think we're seeing the people are tight with their budgets are tight, and with inflation, they may not be going out to eat as much. They're cooking at home, and with the prices that a lot of the restaurants have increased their prices. So I think we're seeing people aren't frequenting restaurants like they were. So we're seeing a decrease there. And we also we actually had at the beginning of fiscal 25, we actually lost a couple restaurants in town. Those now are being filled, so hopefully we get an increase this fall and winter. The rooms tax came in over budget, and just a small increase from the prior fiscal year. With the opening of some of our hotels in town, we're just seeing those stay steady, even though we lost, the state has removed the people from the hotels. We're not getting that income. The fees and fines revenues both exceeded current fiscal year over the budget. The fees exceeded budget by about just under $80,000, and the fines around $29,000 or 21%. The town departments have increased some of their fees. The last time that we updated fees was 2018, and I know the departments are relooking again on seeing if they can do another increase in any of their fee structures in the next coming year. Investment income, we did very well. It increased significantly from prior year. We had a gain in fiscal 25 of just under $770,000. This increase was due to a strong bond market, and we had a 28% increase from prior year. So that was a big piece of our local budget that really helped out there. Real estate and property taxing has always remained solid. The collections there of 99% of collections. And in total, our local receipts came in over the $2.2 million, which was really a big part of what gave us our free cash, increase in our free cash number. Just to talk a little bit about expenditures, all the departments do a very good job in managing their budgets. If you look at this percentage expended, everybody was pretty much, they spent their budget pretty much at almost 100%, or, you know, within the 90 percentile of everybody's. So everyone did well with managing their budgets and doing what they need to do to run their operations. So we didn't have any issues there. We did have some returns, which is just less than 1% of our budget. So we really didn't have huge returns from the departments on that. If we're looking at our how free cash gets certified, when I close out my books, I get what they call an undesignated fund balance. You then basically, it's just an equation of you subtract out your real estate and personal property, any deficits that you have on the books, which we had a small deficit in our general fund for about $1,000. And then you add back your your deferred revenues, things that are going to be collected in the future, and that's really how the Department of Revenue certifies our free cash. So our free cash got certified $4,934,638 was this certified. And those sources of free cash, like I said, we had some departmental. Just under 1% of our budget there, some from prior year encumbrances of $37,000. Like I said, we had $2 million of local general fund receipts returned, and then we had I looked at the explanation of this 408,963, which was from a school circuit breaker from a special reserve relief that was received in late of 24. What happens here is they had the 2 years to use this money. The school department thought were going to use it for this coming fiscal year, but because of how it got received, they actually were supposed to spend it by June 30th. So the Department of Revenue made me close this out, but this really is circuit breaker money that we will then at town meeting vote this back to the school department, back to their circuit breaker. Because it's basically their money, but because I had to close it out to the general fund, it became part of our free cash. So not only do we do our general fund gets a free cash certification, but we also have to have our retained earnings certified by the DOR for all of our enterprise funds. So on the sewer enterprise, they certify the undesignated fund balance, or what they consider their free cash retained earnings, $1.1 million. So actually it's $1,143,1980 is what it got certified. That actually, it was a little bit of a decrease from their number from last year, and that's just due because they spent over their budget, which in an enterprise fund you're allowed to do. It's just as long as you have the free cash or you have an undesignated balance to be able to take any overage that you spend. So basically, if you look at their actuals, their revenues came in a little bit under than what they estimated. So they had 6.1 million, and just $6 million came in on their revenue side. And then on the expenditure side, they were a little under theirs. And then what happens is we did encumber some of that money, that the $377,000 that was left there. We actually went in and encumbered some projects that these sewer enterprise, and you are allowed to do that if you have projects that were not completed by the end of the fiscal year. We can retain some of that money, and that's what we did do. And you can actually see that on the balance sheet itself. We actually encumbered their reserve encumbrances of 435. So we encumbered actually more than what was left on the books, which is fine, you can do that. Stormwater, we added about just under $40,000 to their free cash numbers, being certified at $497,322.33. So they did well. Again, if you look at theirs, they actually brought in more revenue than what they had budgeted for, just by like $53,000. And they were just right in, they overspent by $13,000. So if you just kind of taking the two amounts, that's how you come up with that $39,000 that added to their free cash number. We have the golf course. We had, again, with that, there was $95,000 of revenue generated for the golf course. So that brought their free cash number up to $520,151.33. We had no expenditures with the golf course this year, just revenue coming in. There was been no projects done over there. PEG Access, our telemedia, they also added to their free cash number. They added $71,533.57, bringing their free cash number to $523,920.49. Again, they brought in more revenue than what they anticipated, and they did have they overspent just a little bit on their budget by $47,000, which wasn't bad at all. He had some projects doing in the studio. And the last enterprise fund that we have is the forum, and we actually had revenue there that came in at $163,063.11. We didn't have any expenditures really there. We just all revenue coming in from the rentals, bringing their free cash certification at $597,442.16. So those were all of our free cash. What I thought I'd just show you is what the some of our stabilization funds and trust funds at the end of the fiscal year and how we did there. Our general stabilization fund, we had an investment earning of $846,260. Again, just a very strong investment market. And then we had the $564.82 that was transferred in from the general fund, and that is a town meeting. We do a town meeting transfer. That's just the transfer in that we bring in from the general fund that we add to it. So our balance in our general stabilization fund to date is, at the end of the fiscal year, was $16,745,556.64. So adding to that, our OPEB fund, again, very strong on earnings and investments there. We made over $2.5 million on earning on investment. Again, we had the $2 million transfer in from the general fund, bringing this balance count at $30,304,507.79. Again, the investment there is with the state, that is with the Commonwealth, and they invest that money very well, and you can see that by the return on investment. Really helps out that account.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
What's the yield? When you say that we've done very well with these,
I'm going to actually
what are
have
the yields on these investments?
I know John's in the audience. John will be able to answer that question for you.
Yes. So good evening, everyone. So for the OPEB fund, as Darlene said, that's invested with the Commonwealth's PRIT fund, Pension Reserves Investment Trust. We earned a 9.6% return on that during fiscal year 25. That's net of fees. And then in the General Stabilization Fund, our return was about 5.6% net of fees.
5.6.
5.6.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. And just the last piece I just wanted to kind of go over is where we are with CPC and how we ended up with CPC. The total revenues that came in CPC, which includes interest income and the state match, was $1.8 million. Just about 1.5 came in through the committed CPC amount that we have on the tax bill. And then we had, like I said, the $40,000 for interest income, and then we had 266,474 was for the state match. So we did bring in about $1.8 million there on the CPC. If you look at the balance sheets there, we do have an undesignated fund balance. We did use some of that money for the underground. We voted to take that for the underground money that's going on in the center for the underground work, utility work. So we did have a little decrease in our undesignated fund balance, but it's still strong. It's $3.4 million there. We have reserve of 1.6. And again, just the three buckets, again, we put the money in those buckets, and then we take those directly back out when we vote at town meeting to cover any debt with CPC. And if you look at the last sheet that I have there, this is where our current debt service is with CPC. For fiscal 25, we had a total of $800,000 of debt. We will be increasing that in fiscal 26. We have in this coming year, and that's for the projected Chelmsford Arms renovation, and then for the utility lines, bringing it to $1.1 million for our debt. But as you look at going out, if we don't really take any other projects, then it will not be decreasing. We'll be down very low in 2032. We'll be only about 600,000 for debt for CPC. So we do have enough capacity to do other borrowings if we need to be in the CPC fund for the money that we have.
Okay.
Any questions? That's really just how we did. We did very well for fiscal 25. I think we'll be okay even for 26. It's really going to be going into into fiscal 27, but everything's going to be really tight, I would think.
I just have a quick question on, I think it's slide 9. Can you help me understand where the numbers are coming from? Because I'm struggling to connect the dots a little bit. So where do I see the 1972, the 37,000, the 2515 on the other pages?
The free cash sources, Darlene.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, so we had the sources of it.
Yeah, I'm just trying to connect the dots among the other pages that you presented, so I can better understand how it all comes together.
Yep. So the department returns, if you look at the so I don't have let's see. So if you're looking the $1.9 million, the 1.9 million, if you look at on the bottom of end of page 6, there's 1.9, 10, 50, 522. And then you have to add the other $62,000 to that. So that's the 1.97552 number.
And
So
where's
that's
the other 60? Sorry, where's the other 62?
Yeah, so the 62,030. It should come close to that. I mean, I just kind of rounded these numbers. I mean, it's just you're not going to get probably to the penny. And then we had 37,000. You don't see the reserve for encumbrances, but I do. It's not on any of my sheets, but I have the reserve for encumbrances that was returned to the general fund.
Darlene, on the bottom of page 7, the 62030 is the return from warrant articles.
Yes, but that's part of the general fund. So it's because those sit in Fund 2, which are still part of the general fund that closes to the departments. I still call those department. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And then the local receipts, because I feel like there's a line on there showing that the real estate receipts were far below, and so the non-real estate receipts were above. I'm just a little confused on how that works.
It's. I'm just trying to put my, hold on one second, my revenues.
So looking at page 5, looked like we were running at 98.9% of budget, the $124 million for.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the revenues in general, if you take, I mean, the local receipts, you have to take, it's hard for me to explain this to all of you, but they take our local receipts, so we were about $2 million there, even though, like, I know that we didn't make our number on the real estate, because what they do with the real estate is there's a deferral to that. So if you saw how the DOR certifies our free cash, they actually subtract out the real estate and personal property, and then they add back the deferral. So you really can't, when you're figuring out your free cash on your revenue sheets, you really don't take that into consideration, because you have a deferred revenue sitting out there, basically saying this is how much we're going to be collecting, even though we don't collect it all. So it's not really part of the bottom line number on our local receipts. So
the gap, it sounds like it's a deferral, right?
Yes.
Deferred revenue.
Yep.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other
It's
questions?
hard to, like, when you figure out the sources of free cash, most of the time it is any returns, and then it's really just your local how much you were over on your local receipts. Your gain on your local receipts is really all they look at.
Any other questions? All right, hearing none. Thank you, Darlene.
Alrighty, thank you. Everybody have a good night.
You too.
You too.
All right. Sky rotations. Moving right along on the agenda this evening, we have a review and discussion of warrant articles 1 through 14, 32, and 35 for the fall 2025 annual town meeting. With us this evening, we have a collection of Paul Cohen as town manager, John Souza as a finance director, and Christine Clancy, the DPW director.
Great. Good evening, everyone. Paul Cohen, Town Manager, and I'll do the intro. John, in most of the presentation will come from our Public Works Director, Christine Clancy, today under the articles. Monday night, the Select Board signed the warrant for the Fall Town Meeting, which is scheduled for October 20th. 35 articles. Basically, half of them are zoning articles. The other half are generally traditional Fall Town Meeting articles, meaning reports and some traditional items that we do each fiscal year, and then some capital investments from our free cash. So how the warrant begins is Article 1 is always customarily be the reports of town offices and committees. Obviously, there's no votes, as we know, under this article. But what we'll do, similar to last fall, is Public Works Director will provide a report to the town meeting of the capital infrastructure investments that have occurred in the past year. And I think it's just helpful to show people, well, what has the town been doing in terms of the actions from the town meeting of the appropriations. John Souza, our finance director, will provide a 5-year financial forecast that we're still working on. We're still gathering information as we look ahead, and still calculating some of the new growth and everything that would go into the tax levy for the tax rate for the current year. And then I provide a financial overview, which is basically an overview for the town meeting of, like, well, what are you asking for us tonight? And that's sort of the next slide on there. Is these, as Darlene just informed you, the certified free cash number from the Massachusetts Department of Revenue was $4.9 million. And so we sort of spell out how that's being appropriated, and I'll just, walk you through them. The first one is a consent agenda, very light a consent agenda this meeting, only 3 articles, one of which is no action, and then 2 of which are really ministerial. So this is the first consent agenda. You'll see later on there's a second consent agenda under zoning that you'll hear next meeting next week. So Article 2, to get into the substance of it, is the Cemetery Commission is looking for $65,000 from the sale of graves and lots to the Cemetery Improvement Development Fund. And as you can just see, it's a one slide. You'll see most of the articles aren't very complex on the non-zoning side, so we figured we'd keep the paper down. So right here, basically, the Cemetery Commission is looking to install another niche wall at Pine Ridge Cemetery. As you may be aware, and I think as David Boyle has described, it's about a 50-50 split, and it fluctuates, but it's time now for another niche wall at Pine Ridge Cemetery. So that's the request under this article. Under Article 3, this is the Sewer Construction Stabilization Fund, and this is a traditional article. I'm going to ask John Souza, our finance director, because this is another sort of inside baseball, what's going on with Sewer Construction Stabilization Fund, where does the amount come from, and so forth. John?
So as the town manager mentioned, this is an annual article that you've seen before. So this, what this number represents is, this is the earnings that we earned throughout fiscal year 25 on two different funds, the Sewer Capital Improvement Fund and the Sewer Betterment Fund. And under Mass state law, the interest earned on these monies has to be deposited in the general fund, and then it becomes part of free cash at the closeout of fiscal year 25. However, in order for the town to dedicate these investment earnings so that we can use them to pay sewer construction debt service in future years, a town meeting vote is required to allow us to transfer these monies into the Sewer Construction Stabilization Fund. And this is part of our long-term financial plan for sewer debt out through fiscal year 31.
Thank you, John. We now would move on to Article 4, which is a collective bargaining agreement. We've reached agreement now with our public safety dispatchers. So, and you can see on the slide, the amount raised for that agreement is $42,485 for the current fiscal year. Because just as a reminder, particularly those watching, how it works in municipal government in Massachusetts is when you reach a multi-year collective bargaining agreement, in this case, as is our custom, it's a 3-year collective bargaining agreement. The town meeting funds the first year, and that ratifies the agreement, and we're prohibited under our bylaws of pre-funding these agreements. So that's why it comes at this time. And so that's what we're seeking is $42,485. And if you go to the next slide, this is very similar to what we brought to you back in June at the special town meeting for the agreement with the library union. 3-year agreement, as I just mentioned. The wage schedule increases by 3%, 3.25%, 3.25%. The shift differential by 50 cents per hour from $1.50 an hour to $2 per hour. And we increased the longevity schedule by $250 and converted to an equivalent percentage of pay. And then there's minor scheduling language changes that have to do with scheduling and holidays and stuff, which are more internal to, and actually mirror what is done with previously with the police patrol contract, in terms of we're now scheduling people every 6 months instead of once a year, basically at the request of the union and with the consent of the chief. So again, here's a case where this follows our pattern of settlement. It also follows the industry in terms of we look at our comparables, and so that's what we're seeking here. Obviously, there'll be a retro pay when this is approved by town meeting to catch them up to date, and then all that will then go to the end of the fiscal year and the amount requested. At that point, if this is ratified, the only outstanding collective bargaining agreement that would be town-wide, meaning general government or the school department, would be with the firefighters union. And unfortunately, the firefighters union filed for Joint Labor Management Committee for jurisdiction, which basically means mediation and perhaps ultimately arbitration. So that won't be coming at this town meeting, and we'll obviously work with our state officials and others and hopefully to reach a resolution with that agreement. So that's what's requested under this article. As I mentioned, Article 5 is a placeholder that we always put on to see if there's any issues that may require adjustment to the operating budget. And once again, I think probably for quite a long time, there's no action under this article. We do that because we signed the warrant in August, and we just always have a placeholder in case something were to arise between August and October for town meeting. So now we get into the substantive articles in terms of how are we going to use the town's free cash, aside from some of the ministerial things that we had to do, like taking the money into the Sewer Construction Stabilization Fund. And so with this, these really getting into our infrastructure. I'm going to turn the podium over to our Public Works Director, Christine Clancy, who will walk you through the next several articles.
Good evening. So as far as Article 6, roadway and sidewalk construction, we do request this annually. It's been at least the past few years. Requesting $1 million for the roadway sidewalk construction. And this is really to supplement the Chapter 90 funding we receive from the state and annually the capital funds that we put into the roadway and sidewalk program. So this year we do have some increased Chapter 90 funding coming in finally after over 10 years. So an increase of about $500,000. So that total now coming in is $1.7 million. And then also looking at last year's FY26, $800,000 in capital funds. It still isn't enough to keep up with our roadway and sidewalk system. So we have a $75 million paving and sidewalk backlog. With that, so we have 190 miles of roadway, 48 miles of sidewalk, of also looking to build out 12 miles of proposed sidewalk. And so and this is through our pavement management database and our sidewalk management database. We maintain these databases and we do update them. Particularly with the roadway database, it is a program that will kind of spit out what the next priority roads are. And we do maintain this database annually throughout the year. So really to maintain the roadway rating or improve the roadway rating, we have to really spend about $3 million a year. And that's what we've been doing historically, at least $3 million a year the past few years, which equates to anywhere from 7 to 9 miles of roadway. Obviously, if you're doing something in mill and overlay, that costs less than something more of a structural rehabilitation roadway reclamation. So this is the time of year we start to build our paving list for next year. People always call and ask. We don't really publish it until we get through this year, and we'll publish this officially come next, probably March, I would say. But this is the preliminary list right here of our candidate list. And so the $1 million would go towards this program. It could also be used for sidewalks, but just if you look at this backlog right here, this alone is $3 million of backlog work. These roads, right now we're going through each of these roads to make sure that the treatment that we've recommended and the estimated cost is in line. Sometimes a road is planned for mill and overlay, and then over a winter or even over a year, it puts put into a condition that needs more rehabilitation, so it can be put into a reclaim category. So we're looking at that right now to verify this list, and that will be done and as we plan our bids for this winter and putting it out late winter, along with publishing this list. I don't know if I can go through the slides, if there's any questions per article.
Actually, my husband and I received a letter saying, your street's going to be paved in July, and nothing's happened.
What street is it?
Reed, R-E-I-D Road?
So right now the contractor for this year's paving list that is on this year's paving list. All paving will be completed by October. So there's been prep work on Reed. We come in and do.
I've seen the sewer.
Yeah, so we go in and do prep work, berm, and so then it should be pretty. And I can't remember if Reed is a mill and overlay or reclaim, but it should. So there's some streets that remain to be completed in September.
There's
October.
sewer replacement, big concrete circles going down.
A concrete collar, yes. So
Yeah.
we do. So what we do is before we reclaim the road or mill and overlay the road, we make sure that we all bring structures down if they need to be brought down. Also, we go through everything to make sure that there's no replacement needed. So stormwater goes through, highway goes through, sewer. So that's all the prep work. So we're in front of them, and then they're behind us coming in. So we're moving along in front of them. So the start of the July might have been starting of us working. It is, but we are finishing. That is not going to be bumped to this list. That will be done this fall.
So the sewer work, the drain water stuff is done first, then the paving?
So anything subsurface is completed, and I guess if it is a reclaim, we drop all the structures, because what the reclaim is, a blade goes into the ground and basically churns up the subbase, the pavement and the subbase. So that blade goes down 8 up to 14 inches. So all structures are lowered and then brought back up before we put before we start the paving.
You went a little too fast for me. What does reclaim mean again?
Reclaim is a structural rehabilitation of the roadway. It's a way of restoring the roadway that is more enhanced than mill and overlay, is you're just shaving the pavement off of the roadway. The subbase is structurally sufficient. When you look at anything above that, it's either full depth reconstruction, where you're digging down a total of 12, 18 inches, removing everything and putting new material back. That is expensive, and it requires a lot of coordination. What you can do with reclaim, and it's really, I get more of a sustainable approach and cost effective, is you you basically use that top base pavement to mix into the sub base, and it grinds it up, creates this new layer that is then created as a new compacted sub base layer. Then you put the new pavement, the base layer and the top layer over that. So basically, it's a new road. It's a new roadway.
So the list of roads, if anybody got that list, when would they find out if they've been kicked to next year?
Anyone that's on this list this year has not been kicked to next year. The only one road that was Clarissa Road, and that's on this list. So anything that is on this year's list is being completed this year. We're in September. They're moving along pretty quickly. I didn't bring this year's paving contract, but Reed, I have a feeling, is rehabilitation, but I have to check that. And Reed is on our short list of streets coming up.
Only just because you have to decide, oh no, they're down the street, I gotta go this way. Right, because the stormwater collection, we've had to decide, neighbors go this way, then we see them going that way. Oh, like I'm going that way this morning.
Yeah, construction, there's a lot of coordination in that, but yeah, I guess it's hard to define a set schedule with the paving, so that's why we do notify residents that we're beginning construction, but it does come in waves, I guess, so because we have to go through and do, like I said, the structures, water has to come through, gas comes through, so there's multiple efforts and crews coming by to really finish that product.
So where the driveway is in my house is where the driveway has to be. I can't add a driveway. I'm just asking.
I mean, there's a driveway curb cut application. You can, I mean,
No, just we play do-si-do with our driveways right now.
we put the driveway back where it was.
Okay. That's why I wanted to ask. Okay. So usually stop paving at what month?
It is weather dependent, so
Okay.
we watch the weather. We look at the long-term forecast. So right now, October 15th.
Okay. Thank you.
And then just make sure I'm adding up the math right here. So Chapter 90 had been 1.2, now it's 1.7 for the fiscal year. The capital funds, so that's another 800,000 in CapEx that we have.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is $1 million on top of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then we're up to 3.5 million for the year, and that list over there is roughly 3 million.
3 million, and this
Okay.
doesn't include sidewalks, so we have a list of sidewalks. Also, what's not included in this list is some design. So as we advance some design for some streets, like Main Street is, right now, we're funding that for design, 110. So there's other needs out of the roadway and sidewalk construction fund. And so this is just our quick list, and we're putting together numbers, so it's a current $3 million backlog. We truly have, if we had more, I would put more money to this is such a critical infrastructure. Everyone, wants their roadway, if you have potholes, you want the road restored. And it's important that we try to do as much as we can before that road gets thrown into the next category. Because if we can fix a road while it's still mill and overlay, then we can, spend that money more cost effectively. We need to make sure we're still putting money into the reclamation and not just focusing on mill. So we have to kind of split that, the $3 million. This is just based on estimates. Plus, we have some contingencies in there too. If we add a section, sometimes we will add a small section if needed.
Got it. Okay.
Any other questions?
So moving on to Article 7, this is related to roadway reconstruction, but this is really, I guess, when we have larger projects, we do tend to break them out separate funding requests. And so this is for the preliminary designs for Route 3A reconstruction between Technology Drive and the Vinyl Square Intersection Safety Improvements Project, requesting a total of $300,000. We have spent funds in both these projects to date. This is primarily Mass DOT right-of-way. We do have ownership at the intersections too, especially Vinyl Square particularly, but even Richardson Road, we own Technology Drive. And so I'm just going to go through. We put these together because they're two projects right next to each other, and they are Mass DOT projects. The first one I have listed here, the Route 3A reconstruction, is between Technology Drive and Richardson Road. And how this all really started was we originally, in reviewing some of our intersections, like where would we want to maybe add some traffic signals, and Richardson Road always popped up as a potential request, especially in with the school. When you have school traffic, it's really hard to sometimes get through that intersection. We applied through a bottleneck reduction grant through that process, and it was denied because in that denial was really because this is state layout, and so it wasn't applicable for that grant process. So we've always discussed with Mass DOT and a desire to improve that intersection, also looking at the intersection with Princeton and Route 3A. So with this, we coordinated with Howard Stein Hudson, our consultant, that's also working in Vinyl Square, and they provided a scope to complete 25% design. That 25% design at the time was about $300,000. We did release some funds that we had through actually mitigation with Princeton Ave traffic, the 255 Princeton Ave. We've already completed some work, so we're not fully 25% design here. We had a July 8th public input session. We basically completed some assessments. The first stage of looking at, it's called what Mass DOT calls as ICE analysis. So it's you look at the intersection controls and see if a roundabout is warranted or traffic signals. So that's been completed, survey work. But there's a level of effort to still get through the Mass DOT process of 25%, so that's what this request is. And as far as the benefit of this is it can get on the TIP project. So with this being put on the TIP project, the state would fund construction. Right now it's not on the TIP, but it could be FY30, it could be after that. The other project that's been discussed for really several years, I'd say, than this is a more recent project, is the Vinyl Square intersection safety improvements project. This has been, I think, in discussion since before 2020. It is planned on the TIP for FY28. We have submitted 25% design. There is a 25% design public hearing that will take place likely in the spring. Mass DOT has to still complete their review of the 25% design, and comments have to be incorporated into the 25% design. Also, Mass DOT has implemented a new requirement that utility reviews have to be taken place, particularly in Vinyl Square, and that with it's like the electronic tracing of utilities to know exactly where they are, not just survey, and that could be upwards of $100,000 in some cases. We're performing something similar at the center for the conduit work. So so we need additional funds to advance these projects to really get over that 25% design. And this is just showing the two. I mean, they do projects don't touch exactly. But this is the first project, the Route 3A between Technology Drive through Princeton Street, just past where the Mahoney's is. And then this intersection, I didn't show the limits, but it takes you basically just past the town common to Washington, and then just past Broughton, Tingsboro, and Dunstable.
No trip going back.
There's a cord there.
Are there any questions on this article?
So those little bits that go into the other street is just to make it smooth?
You always have to transition. Yeah, so you have to transition. So we are proposing, through the ICE analysis, it did show that a roundabout would not work at both Princeton and Technology. So it's intersection control at Princeton, which is currently intersection controlled with traffic signals, and Richardson would be a traffic signal as well. And Technology would remain as is, just connecting into it. So Article 8 is the request for $100,000 to replace the existing emergency power supply system at the police station. And so what this is really is, the police station's a 24/7 facility. It has to be, it's always busy, and they always have to have power available to them. And they not only do they have to have power available to them, they have to have a backup system so everything is kept online and also backed up. So there's this system that they specifically have separate from a generator that, in the event there's a power outage, they have they have their maintenance. People can call into the police station. Everything is backed up. The computers are backed up. Their cameras are backed up. And that system is really dates almost back to the construction of the building, so approaching, it's 20 years old, and it has essentially reached its end of its useful life. We have experiences outages, and when we do experience that outage, it's really an emergency, and you need to get that system back online. And so over the past year, it's been about 3 times, and when we have that outage, we scramble to essentially get batteries. And what's happening is the system is failing, and batteries have to be replaced to get it, to basically reboot it. That's what's happened at least two of the times. And the batteries can cost upwards of like $8,000 just to purchase. And so in talking with the consultant that we worked with, when we were responding to these emergencies, they said, really, you're at a point where the system has to be replaced and upgraded. So it's really a critical infrastructure piece, and it is working right now, but it's really at a point where it needs to be replaced.
Well, this is the usual, why not use capital funds versus free cash? Why isn't it in the capital plan?
So this is not in the capital plan because I guess it wasn't listed in any type of master plan document to say this needs to be replaced in 20 years. So it's something that what we've kind of taken back from this is that, so we have a good record of what we have in all of our, we know we have so many boilers, so many HV systems. As far as like radio towers and backup power supply systems for police station, that's just was not in our inventory. So one thing in reaction to this, we said we need to know where all the whether it be police, fire, where all these backup systems are, and make sure they're also put into our inventory so that we are proactive in replacing them. Because that's what I want to do. I want to basically say, okay, boiler at police station gets replaced this year, because we do not, and the reason why it's free cash is because I want to replace. Honestly, we were thinking, do we try to pull money together and replace it sooner? But just it is working. It has been working for a few months now, but it needs to be
I was
replaced.
just preparing you for town meeting, that's
Sure.
all.
Yeah.
How long will it last? How long, you spend the 100 and get a new one, how long will
So
that
new
last?
systems also in the $100,000, we also want to make sure we're upgrading to what I've also been told is a dated system. And so I will make sure we go with any new technology, but any new systems are typically 20, 30 years, I would say. That's what we usually design towards.
So if you say 25,000 in the last 3 years,
25,000 in the last year we've spent in emergencies.
oh, 3 years, all right, so you're basically saying you could probably spend that in 4 years and have to continue spending it, where you could fix it and have to be cool for a while.
I mean, essentially this is unreliable, so
Yeah.
we need to replace it.
25 years
You
old.
need to do it, I don't think there's any
Yeah.
argument
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
And it's 100,000, I wouldn't expect this to be in the capital budget.
No.
Like, it's a long term, but it's 100, like on 100, I don't know how much, on $120, $130 million operating budget for the town, this should be absorbed in operating expense.
Yeah, and we did receive an initial quote, and I did add a little bit in it, just because I want to make sure we have the right, I don't want the vendor telling me what I need, I want a consultant to assist with it, so that's why we're so really looking a little more holistically, like what should we have? So that's why we're making that request in that amount.
Any other questions?
The next request is Article 9, the request for $45,000 to install acoustical improvements to the senior center Great Hall area. We do have, in previous free cash years, we do have a project that is right now being designed. We're replacing some of the flooring in the great room, so there is a bit of a renovation happening to the great room. And in discussing that with the senior center, and we thought, well, this hall, the space is a space where there's often events, particularly town meeting too, and with the addition of the air handlers, there's a bit of there's noise, especially coming from the stage area, and so considered, should we look at the acoustics in this in that particular space. We did look at some other spaces in town offices, and that's really low-hanging fruit stuff that DPW could accomplish. The report, we did have a study completed or the senior center did by Kavanaugh Tachi, and they did make some recommendations, and this is pulled right from the report. So they they measure the noise, background noise, and then also, where noise, I guess, is coming from, and where, tables and fixtures sit throughout the room. Plus, you have the kitchen area in the back. So in the report, they noted you've got the noise from the kitchen, and you have the noise from the air handlers, and so it's difficult to hear from the stage. So the recommendation is to add up to 2,200 square feet of sound absorption material, which to address the noise, particularly in this great hall. And made this request in the amount of $45,000, really, because it pairs well with this renovation. So, right now we're going through the flooring to replace the flooring, and we do anticipate this would all be done ahead of the spring town meeting. And this is just showing, I don't want to say this is exactly what we're doing, but this is what was recommended. So right now we've started to receive prices and quotes, or quotes, and trying, I guess, logistically figure out what we procure or what we have subbed out.
With all the renovations you just referenced and this renovations, how long would the Great Hall be not usable for Great Hall reasons?
So we're still working on the I don't think it's not going to be, because it's flooring, so it should go in pretty quickly. So, and that's what we're working closely to make sure that we can, or maybe just do it in pieces. So we're working with Debbie Seriani on that to see exactly what we can do. And especially the sound absorption, that should be a pretty quick install. It's more just getting a lift in there and doing the work. So I mean, we're trying to limit that, so I don't want to say yet if it's going to be like, it's not going to be like it's out of commission for 2 months. It might be, we're still setting those terms. Are they coming in at night? Are they coming? So we're still trying to figure that out. We do think the best time to get in here is this winter. Because I know there's more, I think that from what I hear, is they're busier in the summer, and they're a little less busy in the dead of the winter.
Any other questions?
Article 10 is the request for the Chelmsford Public Schools switchgear rehabilitation. And as the next slide, I just want to say there is a typo, so I say $200,000 here, only because when we first were looking at our list of projects that we thought were reasonable, so we have in all of our school systems, our school buildings, the buildings are, the youngest building being 50 years old. The high school and all the other buildings are approaching 70 years old. With those buildings, the electrical switchgear, the switchgear systems, which is basically switchgear is when you bring electricity into the building, it steps it down and converts it to, I guess, the amperage that it needs throughout the building, or the supply that needs to the building. And then in that, right here, that is a panel board. So those, that's in your basement where you go when you can turn and off different zones. We have those throughout the schools, and that distributes the power throughout the building. Those panel boards are original to the building, and so we, especially basically as they get older, they become more unreliable, especially if you're trying to do other upgrades. So it's been recommended to us that you really should be doing some type of rehabilitation to your switchgear systems, because they're such a critical part. If that goes down, you don't have school, you know what I mean? Because it's so critical. We're not talking about full upgrade. If you talk about electrification, that would be a whole new switchgear system. This is just to rehabilitate it, kind of like you're going in for a tune-up of your car, just making sure that it's going to function, make sure there's no repairs needed. The panel boards themselves would be replaced as part of it, so that's really the larger cost. So we call it switchgear rehabilitation, but it's basically just tuning up your switchgear system and replacing these panel boards. And these are in the South Row School right here. We have spent ARPA funds to rehabilitate the McCarthy switchgear systems, and that was very successful this summer. And we really need to continue on all the schools. And I mean, it's hard. So if you think of each school, so McCarthy was $150,000. My guess is the Chelmsford High School. It is a newer building, but that could be upwards of over $200,000-$300,000 just for the high school. So it's a huge expense when we're looking at we have other expenses. We have roofs, we have boilers. So we're trying to find ways to best to program these into whether it be capital or to free cash. And so when we were coming up with really critical projects for this this free cash request, I said, is how much money can we have, towards the switchgear rehabilitation? And so $400,000 is what we're proposing. And the focus would be South Row School, because we're doing so much work at the South Row School. Next summer, we're doing a new roof, and we're also doing the ceiling replacements. Both involve electrical, because we're connecting in new solar panels, and also we'll be doing a lighting upgrade. So we'll be touching these panel boards. And so the first thing our consultant said is, you really should upgrade these panel boards. So that would be our immediate focus, and so we would start designing that immediately, put it out to bid, and we would be replacing these panel boards next summer. Also, the next focus would probably be the high school. It's just the largest building we have. If there's any left, we do title this as Chelmsford Public Schools, because if there's any money left over, I will design the rest, for all the elementary schools, really, or even start implementing panel board replacements.
Any questions?
Give Christine a break for a minute. Article 11, as Darlene mentioned earlier when she was talking about the free cash certification, we're basically seeking to transfer the $408,963 from free cash to the school department for out-of-district special education tuitions. And as Darlene described, and this was presented by Dr. Lang to the school committee at their last meeting, and prior to that, obviously, he met with the town accountant and finance director, John Souza, and me, with Joanna Johnson-Collins, the school business manager, to go over the situation. This, obviously, as Darlene indicated to you, was unforeseen and was sort of caught off guard. And what happened is that back in May of 2024, the Commonwealth, providing assistance to communities across the state, providing an advance payment for what we call circuit breaker. It's basically special education reimbursement or relief program, as they call it, to assist communities at special education costs that are above $30,000 per student. So the payment was provided in $408,963 in May of '24. How the school committee uses their circuit breaker, and many of you have been through their budgeting processes, they sort of carry it forward to the next year. So when the school committee prepared the current fiscal year budget a year ago, they were including that $408,000 as a carryover into fiscal '26. The problem, though, is, as Darlene described, is you can't carry it more than one fiscal year ahead, and so basically what happened was, since it was received by the community of the district in May, before June 30th, it had to close out. And so when Darlene submitted the balance sheet, they basically kicked back to her and said, well, you've got to add this $408,963. So basically what we're doing is we're restoring the circuit breaker funding that's provided for in the school's financial plan for the current fiscal year. So again, this is sort of a mechanism to achieve that, because like I said, in order to get our free cash certified in accordance with the State Department of Revenue standards, they closed the money out, and now we're sort of returning it to their fiscal plan. And again, it's a warrant article. It can only be spent for out-of-district special education tuition, and that's what will happen with these monies in accordance with their school overall budget for the current fiscal year.
Just so I understand the
Yep.
flow of this, so this was in the school budget in the circuit breaker.
Right. So when the
And then
school
it went
committee
to the-
adopted their fiscal '26 current fiscal year budgetary plan, this 408 was in that funding plan for the current fiscal year, because it was money that they believe was FY '25 money, because it was an advance payment that they could carry into '26. And if you remember, and we've seen this when Darlene presents the account balances, they always have that balance of the prior year carrying forward. What the Department of Revenue said, no, you received that money in '24, technically, so you've got to close it out at the end, June 30th of '25, which is a couple months ago.
So when we closed it out, where did
It goes to free cash.
Goes to free cash,
Undesignated
and now we're
fund
just moving it
balance.
from free cash
Back
back to the
into school,
circuit
right.
breaker. I
Which
just
is why
wanted
So
free
it-
cash bumped up.
Bumped up by the extra
And
half.
they'll let you do that, go to
Oh,
free
yeah.
cash with it?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because it's the town's used to free cash. I mean, we could have used it to buy, to fix a road or anything we wanted to, but yeah, it's the town's choice. But
Then the school budget would be
basically,
short
No
400.
brainer.
yeah, they would then be coming back at the end of the year saying, we're short $400,000
No
in
brainer.
tuitions.
Yeah,
Okay.
except this will be 20 minutes of town meeting.
What?
This will be a 20-minute discussion.
Well, of course it will, but
Yeah,
that's
so
okay.
that, stuff happens. And again, it's not something that happened regularly. It was the state providing assistance in 2004. So the next article, Article 12, is the final free cash article. What I want to point out here, Christine's going to do the presentation. This is the final free cash article, and that's deliberate. And why it's that way is that if there's anything else that didn't survive or what have you, we've got to balance out the free cash to zero. So actually, if you go to Darlene's number at my summer beginning, the amount under this, if everything else were to be approved, is not the round 2.50, because you remember it was the 842 and everything else. So the actual amount, if everything is called for, would be 2,484,842. So that's how we place it. Now, Christine's slides will show the rounded number of 2.5, but it's the two, right now, if everything else is funded, it'd be 2,484,842.
Go for it.
But the question is, but there's nothing on the stabilization fund.
Right, we're not putting anything into the
Nothing
stabilization
in
fund.
stabilization.
No,
And
No.
why is that?
because two reasons. One is you heard John talk about the return in the stabilization fund, but more importantly, the town has a financial policy of a stabilization fund, cash reserves being between 5 and 10%, and we're at the ceiling of that level.
Congratulations.
Yeah. You may want to say that at town meeting, just, or like
Absolutely.
highlight the fact that
Absolutely.
like, you may want to say that we're not moving anything to
Yeah.
stabilization because we have now hit the 10%
Right.
limit.
Yeah.
So, like, may want to highlight
Yeah.
that, because I'm
The
sure people have
just the
forgotten.
financial review at the beginning of the article.
Yeah, we can do
one.
that. That's fine.
Because people will ask.
Yeah, because people say, well, why do you got $4 million in free cash? And we said it's like, less than 2% of our budget. But it sort of becomes what happens with reality versus forecasts. Obviously, the Fed didn't cut the interest rates, so that boosted up the returns on stabilization fund and John's investment earnings and everything else. And so that's why we're not putting anything in stabilization fund. But yeah, thank you. I'll mention that.
Yeah, and again, like, even like the fact that it's a higher interest rate, so like when it's a lower interest rate,
It's going to go the other way.
Go
If
the
the
other
Fed
way,
starts
right?
cutting,
Yeah.
yeah,
We'll
exactly.
be funding from stabilization fund at that point.
right.
Exactly.
All right, so roofs, Article 12 is to request $2.5 million for roof replacement at the McCarthy Middle School. So as presented in last.
2484.
2484, yeah, whatever. So that amount. And looking at our 5-year plan and as presented in previous capital years, we're entering a period where we have to do many roof replacements. Obviously, we want to take advantage of the MSBA accelerated roof repair project if we can. We are doing that at the South Row School. Some roofs though are not hitting that 20. The roofs have to be at least 25 years old in order to even be eligible to apply, and this was not, and there's others in the pipeline that have not reached 25 years of age yet. So this is really, I guess, so we've already started to phase this project. With previous FY25 and FY26 capital, we have $1.25 million designated towards this project. And just to highlight the area, this area right here, this is the gym area, kitchen area. This is the oldest part of the roof that has the most leaks. So we focused our initial project on this area right here. This is the other area, roof 2. It's a very large area, 81,000 square feet. And then we have this modular unit over here. These two sections in our roof assessment are saying that you should probably consider replacement in the next year or two. They're not leaking as much, but it's been flagged as these are also have repair needs. And so just with such a large request, we thought the best thing to do is to try to phase this and request for capital allotments or free cash allotments in different years. So this would be continuation of that project.
Do we have pictures of the roof leaking? It
Um,
may not be a bad idea to put them in, 'cause
We
people
can,
forget the
yeah, we
condition of
actually,
them.
I mean, I don't know if we can definitely find some. We've been on this roof, we're actually going through the assessment piece right here. We've done test cuts. And also the other thing is that we haven't done a full assessment schematic of this first area. And as you know, the cost for the replacement of the South Row roof is $4 million. So we might even need some of this money just to complete phase one. With this money, we're completing the assessment of this phase, and then we also will do an assessment of the remaining phase to then put together what is that overall number. We don't know what that overall number is. We do have an annual roof assessment report completed, and what that does is that's a flyover visual inspection, and that estimates what the cost is. Those costs, I guess just from the South Row experience, have not been enough, because the things, when you start to do test cuts, you realize, what are you really removing? In the South Row example, we're removing 2 layers of roof. There's some similarities between that roof system and this roof system in the roof area 1. So we still right now are going through building this, what is this overall cost? You also have 10-year-old solar systems on this roof, solar panels, and with these solar panels, it doesn't make sense to put them back on, and it's almost, it's low. It's in terms of funding a replacement, it just financially makes sense to, and it's also best for the new roof, because then in 20 and the new roofs are really being designed for 30 years. So in 30 years, we would be replacing the solar panels in the roof systems together. So I guess I was at first hesitant to request this, because I was like, well, I don't know how much it costs. Like, I don't know. I know we think it's at least $5 million, so we know we need the money, and we want to continue with phase one. And so as with this, we'll complete a schematic design for the whole area. Right now, we're just focused on this first area. We'll know what that overall cost is. We know we wanted, and also this is a school, so it's important that we do this work next summer. So we want to get this first phase out for next summer. With the funding we already have, and maybe potentially some of this funding as well. Once we have this overall assessment complete, I hope we don't, but I do think that if we're currently estimating $5 million, we'll have to seek more money. It might be this year's capital, it might be a future phase. And if this was just the next roof coming up, but we have roofs almost every year for the next several years planned. So we want to get through this roof, and then we do have others in the pipeline as well.
Can you explain the numbers on the photo?
Oh, yes. So these numbers are taken directly from the roof assessment report, and they do a visual inspection, and they do a flyover, and they have numbers that reference defects. So each one of these numbers is a defect, and the defects could vary from it could be a flashing that's not that's starting to lift, or could be drainage. A lot of these I think it's a ponding issue. So there are sometimes it's a hole, and this is PVC. This right here is a built-up roof system, and this is EPDM. So each number associates to some failure in the roof. It could be more minor, and some are more severe.
Someone's going to ask for that, what the legend is for those, so you might want to include that just as in the slide deck.
I can do that, yeah.
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 And also the striations on roof 1, what are those? The black striations.
You mean this?
No, that's roof 3.
Sorry, roof 1.
Yeah. No, that's roof 2.
Roof 1.
That's roof 1.
Sorry, the black.
As you see, there's gray and black. So you see, like the bottom corner of roof 1, you see that there's almost a four-fingered star. The corner between 4 and 4 on the biggest roof on roof 1.
4 and 4.
Do you have a pointer?
Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
Right here?
Yeah, what are those striations?
That is ponding, and so the built-up roof system is like a concrete decking, and it has like a gravel on top of it. So that's when you see the darken, it's probably a wetter area, more drainage concerns. And drainage will be addressed with part of that.
Which is why roof 1's currently the one under.
It's the oldest too.
Yeah.
It's the oldest.
Okay. Thank you.
So another question is, if they're 20 to 24 years old, the 24-year-old roof, why can't you just wait a year? It might be one of the questions that you get, so you can, become eligible for MSBA.
So we could wait a year. So this is the area that's pretty severely leaking, and we're already designing it. So we're moving forward with design. So I think that's the section that we, actually the 24-year-old. Yeah, this is 24 this year. We started this 2 years ago. So 2 years ago it was severely leaking, and then this is 23 years, and that's 22 years. So you theoretically could wait, but 2 more years. And that's thing is that's when you can apply. From when you apply and actually do the construction, it's another 2, sometimes 3 years. So it's like I guess if there's a leak, then what do we do?
Yeah, so I think part of that story is important to bring out, plus maybe some pictures of like the leaking, and just talk about how compounding over the course of a couple years of waiting, that's one part of the decision.
Sure, that would be good. And yeah, as far as we just have so many roofs that fall within this age, so it's hard to say, oh, what are we going to hold on this one, that. So we're trying to do like a roof a year, and this is coming up as the next most critical one. South Row was, but that fortunately was a little older, and that was funded through MSBA.
So as we hit, you said like you're in the design phase, and we're in 24 years. So next year we're going to hit 25, and we're doing the construction. Can we apply then for any funds? No.
And plus, you have to go through their design, and like I said, it takes 2 years. It also could potentially cost more because they kind of similar to Mass DOT tip projects. There's a very certain process that you have to go through. So there's sometimes more requirements, and with that more cost. So if we say it's a $2 million roof, it could actually through MSBA potentially be a $3+ million or more. This roof is leaking, so it's 24, and also the MSBA, it's a sliding scale. So when they say you just have to be 25 years to apply, they'll get, let's say, 80 submittals, and they only have so many, and they have a sliding scale based on what they recommend. So I forget what the last year's was, but I know one year it was the roofs were 29 years or older. So you might it's
may or may not get the funds for it.
And I just want to see if I can summarize this. So you can't apply until the roof is 25 years old. And that process is at least 2 years.
at least, sometimes 3.
And depending on, they may come up with a more expensive solution than you would have maybe done.
Different, the process yes.
Thing, and then, so 2 years before they approve, or 2 years before you can get it done. So do they, if you apply, let's say the year is 2030, you apply because your roof is 25 years old. Do you get the money and they say yes? Do you get whatever percentage money in 2032, or do you get it?
You get the money once the project is complete. You get reimbursed. You get we allocate it, but I guess so. Yeah, so theoretically,
to approve, and then you get the money back after.
It's
it's
construction.
a reimbursement. So
but you
still
have to complete it to
still,
their standards,
yes.
what they want.
Yes, yeah. So for
Okay.
this roof right here, we're designing it right now. We're going to do it next summer. If we said, oh, and this roof is 24 years old, so we'd have to wait a whole nother. So if we wait till next March to apply, and then you find out, I think October, you start designing, you'd probably be out you'd be 3 or 4 more years from today before you start installing that roof. Because it's 24 years right now. And when we started this process 2 years ago, we were like, what roof do we really need to do? So that roof was 2 years old. And so we said, well, we still have 3 years and it's leaking. Like there's a lot of leaks.
And just because I've been a town meeting rep, what kind of things does the leaks cause problems? What are the expenses of leaks?
I mean, so in the gym areas, there's puddles, and so it's a safety hazard, and so obviously we don't want that when kids are playing basketball. So we try to come up with, and I think it is here, and I can get a picture. I believe one of the leaks, like there's a roof leak, and I think they just have like a bucket up there, and so there's really not a great repair option for some of these for these leaks if the roof is. And here, and we're like going through the assessment, there's likely some of the sub because of the leaking, it's compromised, and so it's not just the top is leaking; it's getting into the roof, it's getting into the flashing. So I mean, I don't want to say what we're doing, but it's not just putting on a new roof. Now we might, if you get into masonry, that's much more expensive. So at least from the very initial visit to the roof, there's needed repairs. So I think it's very critical that this piece be completed now, and that will be with the 1.25 million, and likely from more funds from this 2.5 million. How we do the rest of the project, the roof 2, the roof 3 is easy. The roof 2 project is such a large area. We need to assess it and figure out, I guess, that plan. But I think the most important is to get the money to see what our plan is for roof 2. And I guess with roof 1, we're still putting together the cost estimate.
So in an ideal world, your roofs would be at 25 years, still good for a couple more years, cross fingers. But that's not how it goes.
No, I mean, it depends on the roof, I guess. It's just, and think about with the solar panels, there's solar panels on there, so anything that's on the roof could potentially impact it. So I can't speak to, I guess, how it was installed 25 years ago. But yeah, you want it to last as long as possible. But new systems are lasting so what we're designing, we're paying for, it's costing more money for the roof at South Row, through the $4 million, but that is a 30-year roof. It's not a 20-year roof we're buying.
And when you say 30-year roof, if it fails before you go back to the house?
There's warranty, so it depends, like so there's there's a warranty process to have that repair.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
So that ends the request through free cash. But the next request is still an infrastructure request, and this is Article number 13, the request for $500,000 to extend drainage along Westford Street. It is a drainage project, but it is being requested from the sewer reserve the sewer free cash, essentially. And the reason is because this is really a private inflow project. The request is to extend drainage on Westford Street between Worthing Street and 40 Westford Street. It's about 600 linear feet of drainage. I think it would be a 10-inch probably PVC pipe. With that, this 600 linear feet of drainage pipe will address some local drainage concerns, pick up some catch basins that are not adequately providing the need, or not correctly, they're connected together where they should be really connected to a main system. Also, there's it would pick up redirect drainage that's going out towards a culvert area that we want to direct more to town property. And with that, I guess, and this is the primary reason, is it will be taking out of the sewer system about 25,000 gallons a day of private inflow. As we did a sewer, a voluntary system 2 years ago, where we said if you have a sump pump and you think it's connected to the sewer, it is illegal, it's not allowed, but we want to know, because we want to see if we can, it's one-time opportunity we would help redirect it to either, your backyard or to the storm drain system. So we completed that program, or that process. We had 200 people sign up. Of the 200 people that signed up, only 15 people really had, some people didn't have some people, didn't either have some pumps or didn't have some pumps that some people, when they connected to right outside, there were no issues. We found 15 that we should look at. Of those 15, that are 4 that have larger flows, because they're constantly running. So the pumps, they discharge about 5 gallons a minute, or 3 gallons a minute, and one of these houses had 2 of them. So when we did in doing the math, if it is running all the time, all day, and there's 2 of them, and that is almost 25,000 gallons a day. There's also another house on that street that we could pick up. We suspect that there's others along this street. So we'll talk about maybe adding drain stub outs along this stretch of Westford Street. But it's really, the reason this is so important to us is because that takes 25,000 gallons a day out of the sewer system and puts it into the storm drain system. And with our capacity constraint, we have a sewer policy where we don't allow people to add inflow without really checking in with us, adding sewer through development, unless they are really purchasing capacity. We allow up to $500 for a location, so 500 gallons a day, which is essentially 3 bedrooms. So if people add a couple bedrooms, we allow it. But beyond that, when you have businesses coming in, they have to purchase that capacity through us. residents cannot participate in the program. So that 25,000 gallons a day will basically go into our sewer bank, and we can then sell it back for development. And this is how we see, there was a presentation to the select board Monday night about what's our long-term plan for sewer capacity. But for now, what we're looking at is we need to try to find ways to get, to remove the infiltration or the inflow. So we've addressed manholes, we've lined sewer manholes, so that reduces infiltration. We'll continue that program. And then this is really our next effort, is the reduction of inflow. And we do think it is evident in the system, because when we have a lot of rain, our flows are up, and right now we're in a drought, our flows are low. And so, that is part of the solution, looking at as how we continue to develop.
I just want to make sure I understand, is that a sanitary sewer is the, like, toilet water stuff?
Yeah, so that goes to Lowell wastewater treatment plant, Duck
And so
Island.
you're offering these people who qualify a one-time thing, where you would tie something in their house to the stormwater?
So we're extending the storm drain, and as we extend the storm drain, we'll take a lateral off of there into their house, only because that was part of that initial program. So those 15 people that those 200 people that participated, 15 people that basically qualified for, yes, we needed help and do something. That's what we've taken that to say, we will figure out how to remove it from your system.
And you want to do all this because it will give more sanitary sewer capacity?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's a good time to do it too, right, with the bridge construction?
Yes,
and all?
exactly. Good. So I put that in here. So the reason why we're requesting that now and not next year, because we still have to go through. We have preliminary design. We might be able to design it in house. We're figuring out if we design it or if we have someone design it. The best time to do it is the next year, because Westford Street has low traffic, and so we said let's take advantage of Westford Street right now in terms of low traffic, to do as much construction there as we can.
So as you do this, you may find that there are other laterals that are connected to the line that will be cut off and did not participate in the program and will be responsible themselves for redirecting their pumps, correct?
Correct. So we are, so there's other methods we can use with our CCTV to find out if people are not correctly connected, and we're continuing that, and we'll be more aggressively continuing that. But yes, I guess what we have talked about is, do we leave some drainage connections for potentially to connect, whether it be a catch basin or someone. So we leave them just to the right, not going into people's property. So that would be smart, because I don't want someone digging back into the middle of the roadway.
Yeah, so you leave the stub out, but they have to do the work.
That's
to
our thought.
connect.
Yeah. Right now the focus is the 650 linear feet and some replacement of catch basins. But I do think we could add in a few some laterals here as well.
Just another clarifier. So there isn't stormwater right now in that area, and you're going to...
There is stormwater,
okay.
but it's more localized. And so basically
Where's
catch
it go?
basins. So there's just various wetland areas it goes to. And that is one of the corrections, is we want to redirect where it's going to one of our easements. So that's part of the correction. Also, I believe that we have more ledge in this area, so that has a concern, and that's why we have a higher price. And so with ledge, it makes it much more difficult and costly excavation. And I think that is why some drainage systems weren't built out in the past. But it's like, well, we have to build it out. So that's why also the cost is somewhat high, as we suspect there's ledge.
I was going to say, it seems like it's a pretty steep price tag for, but again, you're the expert here.
Yeah, we're conservative because of the ledge, but we will do, with this approval, we're going to get started right away on some cores to see where the ledge is, geoprobes, and I guess that's also because we do think we'll put some laterals in there as
Okay.
well. And as we do any future drainage, it might be smart to put some laterals so people can connect to them.
Any other questions? None? Thank you.
And Article 14 is a procurement authorization. Under state law, a town needs town meeting approval to enter into a real estate transaction or procurement beyond 3 years. Our bylaws allow the select board to do it up to 5 years. In this case, the allotted Vinyl Square, the town initially obtained approval 30 years ago for a 30-year lease at the parcel adjacent to the publicly owned, town-owned parcel at Vinyl Square. And so that's what we're seeking, is to renew that. So if you go to the next slide, you can see the description. It's a quarter of an acre parcel. Again, we're nearing the end of the original 30-year lease period. We sent that lease document as well as the town meeting vote to council. Council's opinion is we need to repeat town meeting authorization to go forward. So we can't use the vote in 96 and just roll it forward, because would have been easier. We have talked to the new property owner, and the property owners agreed to renew the lease for a 30-year period for the $1 a year for the entire term of the lease. And then the next slide is just a photo to illustrate people with my little drawing. So the yellow, this is our GIS system, the yellow is the parcel the town owns. So if you go to Final Square and you look to the right, if you're driving towards Tingsboro, that's what you see there is the publicly owned parcel that the town owns, where the clock is going to be installed soon at some point. And then behind there is the pink there is the maroon in Chelmsford, is the privately owned parcel that is owned by the building to the right or to the bottom of that parcel. And so again, it's a shared lot, and basically for the $1 a year, $1 over the term of the 30-year lease, the town does the snow removal and maintenance on the lot. So that's what we're seeking here is the renewal, because if it doesn't happen, then the parking in Vinyl Square will be even more limited than what it currently is. So that's what we're seeking to do with this article.
$1 a year?
$1 for the term. The 30 year for the I
Yeah,
don't
so
think
they're saving they're saving the snow
saving the
like,
snow removal
that's
and the
their
maintenance.
real-
Yeah,
that's how much
so it's a
like-
quid.
It's a quid pro
It's a
quo.
shared quid
Yeah.
pro quo, or shared concept. So that where it goes from here is
hold on a second.
is a whole thing of the consent agenda, which you'll hear on Thursday night from Chris LaValle. So that
Not too
then
far.
moves us towards the end of the warrant,
32,
32.
page 101.
And where are we? 32. Okay, I think that's the right page. Okay, 32. This is a general bylaw amendment proposed by the Arts and Technology Education Fund. It's real simple. They want to basically change the application period, and the way to do that is just remove the language for that specify the application period. So basically, it just says grant request will be presented in the format specified by the Chelmsford ATEF.
Okay.
That's simple, because otherwise you can see the rest of the language in the cross-through, which is why we put these slides on for town meeting reps to see in their packets and at the meeting, is that the current period, it's only available from January through March, had to be stamped by March 31st by the committee, and the committee feels that that period is no longer effective for their program. So that's a simple request under this article. Article 33, you'll have the presentation at your next meeting by the wildlife people. And then Article 34, you'll have a presentation at your next meeting on the citizen petition article. And that brings us to Article 35, the final article in the warrant. And the reason it's the final article, it was a late entry. This would dispose of basically a third of an acre parcel of land that was acquired by tax possession in the town off of Monmouth Street. You see the next slide, it's 1979, it sat there. The valuation of the property on the assessor's records is $169,300. Again, that's an assessed valuation. It doesn't adjoin any other open space or serve any other municipal purpose. And how we would do this is we would do it as we've done previous dispositions. It would be a sealed bid process. We advertise, particularly notify the immediate abutters for the sale. And the next slide is sort of put it into context of where it is. And once again, we use the magenta maroon color. That's Monmouth Street, so it's on the right of Monmouth Street if you're facing it. The big thing to the other side is 300 Apollo Drive, so that's what that big monstrosity and parking lot is. And as you can see, the town acquired this decades ago. we've never moved it to conservation because it has no conservation value.
Is it
If-
buildable?
It's not buildable. So again, in today's world of ADUs and such, one of the adjoining property owners could be interested in putting on either to expand their yard or to construct an ADU. If you look further down on that, right there, you can see there's 2 little smaller rectangles. That's vacant as well, but we don't own it. So right here,
Oh, right here.
right there.
Yeah.
So it's not unique to that area, whatever, when it was built out. I don't, the other concern, put it this way, this was raised to us by a interested party on the street. But again, we have to go through a disposition process, we have to go through town meeting authorization process. The other question was asked by a different party was, well, would this open up development to 300 Apollo Drive into the neighborhood? And we said, no, the planning board would never do that, and also it's not allowed by, by zoning. So we don't believe it would be an outlet.
Because it's IA, right?
Right, but it wouldn't, the planning board wouldn't allow it, because just like you wouldn't allow the people to use the gate on 6 Gorham Street as a rear exit to their property. And we haven't seen that even with the privately owned, so my sense was, if there was an interest by 300 Apollo to get out to Monmouth Drive, they would have probably have addressed the property owner, which is why I pointed out those 2 other lots, they could probably go out that way. We are in the whole purpose of this, for the town's perspective, is to return it to the tax rolls. We have no use for it. It's had no use. We are looking at other parcels around town. We've brought other parcels in recent years. The most recent one being the one over here at the corner of Summer Street, where they're putting that addition on the house. We're looking for others that may be there. And again, why it was a late addition is it was brought to us by an interested party. We looked at it, verified that it was a tax possession. There's no use for it for the town. So that's what we're doing here.
So is this part of the more general process of going through and looking at
Yeah.
random town-owned parcels, but
Right.
also?
We have another one, we believe, up by Needham Street that we're looking at, that'll probably be there in the spring, and we're checking everything at this point.
And then is there also is considered effort on parcels that are in tax taking but haven't gone anywhere?
Yeah, but the problem now with the new rules is, it's a different scenario, because under the current new law of the state, if we take it by tax possession, we've got to go through a extensive process that John can describe, but then we also have to return the balance of the asset from the taxes owed to the rightful heirs of that money. And that's not the case here. So we're trying to clean up matters, and that's what's taking place. So again, I don't believe it's a development risk. I think the land only have value since it's not buildable to adjacent property owners. That's what we're trying to do here.
So one of the adjacent property owners, as you know, called me up.
Yeah, and they called me too.
Emailed me as well.
Yeah.
So
She'll be
one of
here
the
tonight, yes.
concerns, and I rightly believe so, and one of their asks was if we could pull this and bring it in Springtown meeting, because the planning board, as you know, there's a ton of articles for this fall town meeting, is we're really looking at zoning. And one of the requests of this whole neighborhood and this whole area, this is where we had a few years back, the whole distribution center, River Neck Road. This street, which is a neighborhood, is zoned IA, and the desire for the neighbors in this neighborhood would be to rezone it RB. Or maybe this new zoning, if it gets passed in fall town, maybe CB Light, or something to that effect. So their concern, and this neighbor's concern, and this happened to happen to me. I live in an RB district. Someone bought the house next door and decided to add a little auto repair shop there, because he thought he could. And because it was RB, they couldn't. And it took me 10 years to go through the legal process to get them to finally stop. It took me 10 years, and it was zoned RB. So their concern is if maybe a neighbor decides to, it is IA, right, and decides to do something to that effect up the street on River Neck Road, there was a parcel of land that, and again, this used to be all RB, residential. Back in the 80s, it got zoned, a certain section of this got zoned IA. person had a house in RB, it got zoned to RA, and then over the last 40 years, created the junkyard. Because that's allowed, they have enough land, and now they have a junkyard there. So that's the concern from this neighbor. And they're not saying don't do it, they think they absolutely should do it. But they're just saying, can we wait until the spring to see what the zoning comes out, like what people approve this fall, and allow the planning board to present something in the spring for this area? That was their ask, and that's I'm only
Yeah, and
throwing
I've
that
heard
out.
it as well. I've got no dog in this fight. My feeling, what I'm trying to do, the select board have recently it made a clear direction to me that they want taxable properties on the tax rolls. And John was offered as finance director, a tax collector, a parcel up in North Chelmsford off of Middlesex Street. And we brought it to the board, and the board said, no, one, we don't want the potential liability, but also we don't want these properties coming off the tax rolls. So we're now more receptive to, let's just, get these things out from under the town's idleness of just sitting with them and holding them. And so that's what we're doing. But no, I have no problem holding off till spring.
That was their ask,
Yeah.
and I personally went through this
'Cause,
experience.
Yeah, I don't want, last thing I want to do is cause heartburn for somebody unnecessarily, especially on an unbuildable lot, because it's not as though somebody can say, oh, we'll
Nothing's
see where it
gonna happen.
goes, so. Yep, okay.
Right.
Thank you. All right, having been through all of the articles available this evening, we have a discussion of future meetings, invitation to article proponents and interested parties, and a timeline for Finance Committee warrant book production. Let me just get out of this presentation. Okay, so next week, as you heard, we'll have a later start at 7 o'clock as opposed to 6:30 due to a conflict. The Parker School Building Committee's meeting across town at the School Building Committee. Paul, do we think we're still going to get out in time?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Paul and I will both be at that one, and we'll be coming over from there. So we'll start at 7. We have 3 article proponents coming to speak that evening. We have Derek Suhu and I think Jane Seeker as well as coming to speak on the second generation Redenticide article. We have
Can you pre-question these folk?
I'm sorry?
Like, do you have to wait till their presentation and ask them a question that I don't know they'll know the answer to?
Can you reach out to them and speak with them?
No, I don't know. How would I reach out to them?
Well, because they're the article proponents. There's nothing
No.
preventing you from.
How would I? I don't have their phone number. I don't have their email.
We can either Paul or myself can provide that to you. So yes,
Okay.
yes, you can.
I would like their emails, please, because
Sure.
I have questions that I think don't really, I looked at the presentation, I get what they're trying to say, but they don't really offer any, what you're supposed to do with the little darlings besides don't poison them.
Okay, what I would say is that the email address is on the presentation that you looked at. So that would help you with contacting Redenticide. But I can provide that to you as well.
I
yeah.
did not see it.
Yeah, it's there. I think someone's coming to speak on the Coolest Farm. Is it John Ray's? John Ray's coming to speak on the Coolest Farm article regarding the use of Coolest Farm and whether or not it should be returned or directed in some way, shape, or form. And then finally, we have, of course, Chris Lavalley of the Planning Board coming and giving us a very lengthy discussion on many zoning articles that evening. But that will round out the rest of the review of all the articles. And so after that, as you've seen, we have Pam's schedule here. 25th will be the night that we vote. I know there are some people that are coming that want to speak we always have, prior to our votes, we always have public comment. There are a couple people that have mentioned they will be coming just to talk about certain articles that they want to talk about in the public comment section. The last day for recommendations to be made will be October 2nd, although we don't anticipate that we'll be voting that day. I think we'll get everything done on the 25th. And also, typically, the first Thursday of the month is conflict with the Zoning Board of Appeals, and that would be that date. So that's why we don't have a meeting voting that day. So Pam will email a copy of the book to us for review on the 3rd, or sooner, depending on when things are done. But by the 3rd, we'll have final input and comments in the next few days, and then the final version of the letter will also be circulated at that time as well, so that we can get it over to the printer and post on the webpage. It's kind of counterintuitive, but for regular town meetings, we have to be at least 1 week. For special, it's 2, but we're going to aim to be 2 on the publication and availability, so that they're available for people to review. Especially because I know there were some questions when the letter went out from Tricia regarding the availability of the Finance Committee handbook. We haven't voted yet, so when we vote, this is when to expect. Around October 7th, when to expect the published version on the webpage, and then the printed book will be delivered around the 10th of October, and available for the pre-town meeting, which will occur at the Wednesday prior to town meeting at the Senior Center.
I want to circle back to me asking questions. I didn't know that was a thing that I could do, because I thought it only had to happen here. So that's why I asked the question. And is this something I should ask and CC you all, so you know?
No, no, please don't. So
Okay.
that's what we can't do. That's a violation of open meeting law.
Well,
Yeah, no, I'm just explaining.
Yeah.
So if you ask questions to people and we're all included,
Yeah.
that is a situation where it would violate open meeting law, because we are debating on something that we're going to vote on.
Yeah.
If you're asking a single question to someone, and you're asking, we're coming up to my committee, I'd like to have a discussion. If it's not a majority or
This is why I'm asking for the clarification,
yeah,
because.
that's the clarification.
Yeah, because there was no, in the recommendations, because nobody wants to, the red tail hawk that lives in my backyard, go for, but I don't want to poison the thing, but I have mice infestation. It's just about to start any time now. As soon as it gets cold, there's a lot of mice in the house. We work on a physical snap it.
Sure. So I'll make sure you have the
Yeah.
email address, and
Thank you.
you can ask that question ahead of time,
Yeah.
so that they're prepared to answer either before or at our meeting next week.
Because I just don't want to hear capture and release.
Sure.
And
Okay.
just clarifying the timing. So
Yep.
7 p.m. next Thursday, 6:30 the following?
Correct. And the agenda will
Okay.
be out. It has to be out 48 hours before. I may have it out by Monday again, like I had this week. But it will list all the information for next week, and we'll certainly be meeting at 7, not 6:30, because if it was 6:30, I would not be here. It's that'll be tough, because the other meeting starts at 6. Unless, Anita, you want to start at 6:30 and you want to run the show. No? Are you sure?
I was thinking about maybe dialing in, but
Okay.
I
All right.
heard the planning board presentation.
Yep. Oh, I know you did. you get a recap. Is there any public comment this evening?
Want to do a close?
Sure.
I'm sure I did well enough during the meeting. Just sort of want to explain in big picture, like, what's going on here. As Darlene noted, and hopefully you saw, we finished the last fiscal year in a good place. Our free cash came in higher, a little distorted because of that school snafu, but it was about what you normally see in cities and towns, about 1 or 2% of your budget. What we propose, and what I've proposed, working with the department heads in terms of how to allocate that free cash, is we're really knowing that we're coming into a difficult period where, even though inflation is driving up construction costs and so forth, we don't believe that we're going to be able to increase our capital funding amount for the upcoming fiscal year. And so by addressing some of these articles, particularly the roof one, if you look in the capital construction plan, the McCarthy roof is there. The problem is the enormity of that project would just usurp basically most other things in that budget. And so what we're doing here is we're taking advantage of the free cash amount in order to basically provide a head start into that project, much needed because of the condition of the roof. But again, still staying within the levy limit, so it's not, so that's how we're seeking to do that. In context, and sort of go the other question about how are things going in general. The good news is as the chair noted, next Thursday night we'll be at the Parker School Building Committee. 2 days ago, this past Tuesday morning, the superintendent of schools, Dr. Lang, and the chair of the school committee, Dennis King, and I participated in the Massachusetts School Building Authority designer selection process to choose a designer or an architect for the project. I'm pleased to inform you that that was a successful project, and we'll be bringing to the select board, we expect after it goes to the permanent building committee next Thursday, a contract to engage for the architectural services for the project, and then they're going to hit the ground running. So why I know we're going to be here by next Thursday is we pretty much told the owner's project manager we've got to be out of there at 6:45 to get back here for 7. The architectural firm will be present at the meeting. They're going to give a summary of their half-hour presentation that they gave during the designer selection panel. And just how that worked is, I mentioned the 3 from the town. There were also 9 representatives that are appointed by the Massachusetts School Building Authority that were part of this Zoom meeting where basically they let in the first architectural group, because in our case there were only 2 finalists of the 6 who applied. That was winnowed down to 2. The first group comes in, the other group is obviously secluded, not onto the Zoom, and then when they're done, the next group immediately follows. They did their presentation. Dr. Lang, Chair Dennis King, and I agreed, and we were allowed to speak first. We all had the same preference for the architectural firm, and then the vote was split. It was basically 9 people voted. I'm sorry, there were more than 12. 9 people voted in favor of the firm, and then 5 ranked the other one higher. So basically, they went, and I think the reason was they let us vote first and announce our preference, because I think in all things being equal, both firms were well qualified, but they defer, I think in this case, to the town's preferences, because they know that the town officials would know who best would, fit in the community and their approach and so forth. So that's where we're at. The 2 finalists were Tapé, who was not chosen. There were 4 other ones, and then it's AI3 was chosen, and they're an architectural firm with extensive experience in the state. They all they do is build school projects. That's limited their business, and they how we knew they were good, not only by their presentation and their submittals, but when you see a community continue to use the same architect, there's a clue that the community is satisfied and they've got a good track record. So that's where we are with that project. And then the other update is on the fire station construction project. We met with the architectural firm today, meaning Christine Clancy, our Public Works Director, myself, Gary Ryan, the Fire Chief, Tim Pardo, who's the Chair of the Permanent Building Committee. Pat Maloney, you would attend, but he was unable to attend today. And we had the owner project manager and the firm there. That's Galante Architectural Studios. And that project is past the schematic phase. They're into design development. And we expect within the next several weeks to get the design cost. And we're on schedule and believe we're on budget to have that project bid this spring. This is for the 2 fire stations, one on Acton Road and at Roberts Field. So I just wanted to close the meeting just by sort of putting everything into context, because people say, well, what's going on with this? You're asking money to do roads and roofs and everything else. And so what we did in the last few weeks, because we had an indication where the free cash was coming from, we were able to talk to the department heads and saying, what are our needs? And obviously the roof is so essential, because it is, as Christine noted, it affects the infrastructure of the building. And then we also know the other ongoing needs of our road infrastructure. So at the end of the day, we think what we're bringing to the town committee is a good package. And again, it will advance us, because the other thing I emailed you, and I'll mention it, is we want to get an early start once we finish fall town meeting onto the FY27 budgetary process. I had the opportunity, along with our HR director, to meet with our insurance company and look at our claims history and what's going on. And I also had the opportunity to attend a meeting with the vice president of Blue Cross and their municipal rep. And if you read today what happened with the connector programs, double-digit increase in the connector programs, because that's the trend in the industry. So looking ahead, we're not expecting 18.8% increase in health insurance like it was this year. We're actually probably looking somewhere around 12, 13, 14%, because that's the industry norm, unfortunately. And so we're bracing that, and as you can see, we're getting the contracts mostly settled. We'll be able to, once we work with the assessors and get everything put together in the reval year, we'll hopefully have meaningful discussion in November and December, as we then pivot to the release of the budget in January for the upcoming fiscal year, FY27. So that's sort of where things are in the big picture. And so what's going to happen for you and the community is, in the weeks, it'll be announced next week at the schedule. You start hearing the schedule about the community input on the new school project that will begin in October in consideration. The same time we're preparing for town meeting, but at the same time the assessors are wrapping up their 5-year property revaluation. So that information will be going out in the October, November timeframe about the new values and so forth, as we're also working on the budgetary thing. So it's a big dynamic situation. And sadly, it's very challenging. I read this morning that South Hadley lost an override vote that was predicated on health insurance increases, because what's happening out there is alarming to cities and towns, not to mention the concerns overall with the economy in terms of where things are going. So anyway, that's a summary of where we are. So I wanted to sort of try to put it all into context now that you've sort of seen what we're asking for, and the whys behind it, and how we think we are going forward. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other public comment? Seeing none, and there's no press questions, I will continue to keep that on there. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
See you next week.